actually, let's start with you explaining, even mentioning the polymer etchings, what you were doing.
So, I mean, 3 or 4 years ago, I did a print course in Brighton and got introduced to this process. That was the first time trying to do it on like a large scale, but the process is just kind of magical. And as you know, I don't really ever want to print any other way if it's black and white,
Yeah.
which makes it tricky in some ways. There's something about that process and the depth of the blacks and the feeling of the
Yeah.
tactility and the ink that just is really special. And essentially from then on, I just haven't ever wanted to. If I want to do a finished black and white picture, that's the end goal. That's always the end goal. I don't really see another way that
Yeah.
it just speaks so well to the work. And also
You,
just that feeling of I want people to feel like they're seeing something for the first time. And obviously a lot of imagery. The nice thing about this project that I'm introducing is not you won't have seen any of it, but usually it's images that people might have seen before, and it was a way of like repurposing and showing them in their kind of like final light in a way that I think is kind of the most kind of beautiful, I guess.
yep. Yep.
But then kind of lead on to this project. You know, I do my newspapers every year, don't I? Where I kind of collate everything from the year. And I
Yep.
think a couple of years ago, I went through and I did it. And it's for me, it's always a bit of like my like school report for the year. Like I go through and I go, okay, what worked, what didn't work, what do I love still, what didn't work, what am I not taking with me into the years to come? And I don't know if it was last year or the year before, but I basically felt portraiture was missing, like simple, kind of just stark portraiture, which I love, and I do. Has always kind of been in my work, but whether it's kind of a mix of just the changes in my life or the way I work or any of this stuff, I just felt like there was less of them. I was maybe stopping less people in the street. I was finding less time just to do something really
Mm-hmm.
simple and really
Mm-hmm.
beautiful and strong. And I think when you have children, you have so little time. I just knew I had to do something kind of ambitious in a short period of time. So I originally was like, okay, I'm going to aim for 111 people in 3 days,
Wow. Wow.
which we didn't make bake that time, but it's not. I don't think it would be unachievable. It's just I knew I had a smaller time to go and shoot this in London, do it while we could find childcare, and so we did it in a block, and we did about 36, 37 people a day.
Wow.
Um,
Wow.
yeah, and then it was just kind of a way for me just to remember why I love portraiture. Not that I forget it because I do that still, and I find those pictures in work. But as much as I love to embellish and create and make things kind of, we can go to a theatrical side of me. There's also a side of me that just like has always been in love with like August Sander and just wants to make a portrait that says 1,000 things, but is just kind of the bare bones of the structure.
Yeah. So it's interesting when you say that wanting to get to the bare bones. So there's a couple things here. The question I had right away was there's two things, the spiritual and the structural. So one part of what you're doing here is structural, the very thing all the artists, Picasso, whoever, have done since the beginning of time, taken a Head and Shoulders
Yeah.
and reworked it, right? Which is, it's as classic and it's so interesting. So that's one thing I want to talk to you more about, the structural side of it, the building of the picture, the formal qualities. The other is spiritual, because clearly in this batch of pictures, you use the black veil, the hood, whether it's a nun's habit or a monk's robes, there's definitely an ecclesiastical spiritual feeling to it. So I love the fact that the work is simultaneously, as most great art, going down both those paths. So I'd love to hear you talk. And then when you said before, not theatrical, but it is, they're very theatrical because a lot of them have become masks, and that's classic actor training when they do the mask work. Plus the other thing, again, one of the Uber questions always, eye contact or no eye contact.
Mm.
And you went all no eye contact except for about 3 times. And that's so that you don't break the fourth wall. I think that was, as soon as they make eye contact, it's like an actor speaking to the audience. Anyway,
Yeah.
so I've jumped ahead, but all right, what do you want to speak to first? The spiritual, the structural, or the theatrical?
I mean, because I think structural informs spiritual in some ways.
Yep.
I mean, I worked in collaboration with a stylist called Philip Smith, who he used to assist some people I've worked with before. And I basically said to him, I want to build a kind of like a subtle language amongst the
Hmm.
sitters where
Hmm.
they could perhaps feel like, I mean, I've talked about this in another context, but I love the idea that these set of portraits could be found in 100 years' time, stripped of their context, and people would just have no idea, and their mind might wander. And as I like the kind of the you've gone towards the ecclesiastical, I kind of went to you can kind of go towards military, or you could go towards kind of a
Oh.
school or a weird sect. Like there's various other
Wait, pause 1 second. What did you say after military? I just didn't
like a
catch that.
school. I for
A
me, it's a
school.
bit like a
Okay.
school uniform as well.
Yes, yes. But where did you get sex from?
Oh, a sect. Sorry, not sex.
Sect. Okay. Sorry. Sorry. I've heard everything else. I'm like, I didn't see anything sexy in me.
There's nothing
There's,
sexy in here.
there's
Um,
nothing sexy. Okay. Gotcha. Sex. Sex.
but
No, exactly. And that's what I was thinking. It could be Muslim, it could be Christian, it could, because over and over throughout history, the robing, the
mm,
black hoods, but then it could be theatrical,
I mean, there's the theatrical element. It's almost like that kind of the Seventh Seal. It's like that kind
that,
of.
yep. That's I was going to ask you about the seventh seal.
But
Totally. Yep.
it's weird because I found the language for this in the first etchings book. There's that one portrait of the boy where we had with the black hood, and I definitely had that in mind because I've used hoods for the last like 5 or 6 years just
Yep.
because of the way, I'm always kind of looking to simplify and kind of make it as kind of simple as possible. And hair is sometimes something that is annoying and distracts you.
Yep.
It gives you too
Yep.
much information about a person. And in kind of stripping people back to a circle, you then are really focused on that kind of the
Yep.
minutiae of the expression
Yep.
and the skin texture and what their eyes are doing and
Yep.
I guess it's a way of heightening that drama or that kind of quietness or
Yep. Yep. I was looking at it and I was thinking hair must be so annoying for Jack. Anyway, go ahead. I
no,
have
it
the
is
same.
because
Got to
obviously
get the
people want to
hair.
get it back. I want it off, or unless someone has like quite distinct hair, and then you can do something with it.
And you have that one woman with the long curly hair where it
Yeah,
became a
well,
sculptural
her hair is
presence.
just like Grace. Her hair is amazing.
It became a robe.
Um,
Yeah. It doesn't have emotional content usually. So of course
mm,
there's something, but the drive toward simplifying, somebody's got that quote about it's easy to be complex. It's much harder to simplify. One of the great designers, I'll
mm.
look it up and tell you. And I always thought that was a classic. And
Yeah, I guess
true.
it's just like giving yourself less. I think that sometimes like I love making pictures where there's lots of prop element and styling and all this stuff. But
Yep.
sometimes I think it's good to be like, no, this is like what I would deliver if I'm like
Yeah.
trying to kind of boil it down. I'm simmering
Yep.
the portrait down to like
Yep.
what's the kind of, if I'm going on a cooking analogy, just like this really like intense broth of portraiture.
And it makes me think of a little bit your approach in a different medium like Giacometti's, that for over and over, year
Mm.
after year, he had boiled it down. The expression was in that just the stripping away of those thin figures. And it's like, I think you're doing the same. You could do the most complex portraiture, again, like you're saying, this props, the stylist, you're the best. But it's also something in your artist's soul wants to, again, get to the core. And I'm always just fascinated that throughout history, it comes down to the head and shoulders over and over
Mm.
for so many artists to figure out. And again, Picasso being a great example too, that thousands of variations, upon
Yeah.
that, I don't know, it's incredible. Talk more again what it says to you when you've got that black hood on them, besides stripping away distraction. Does it evoke the sadness of the seventh seal? Does it evoke again the spirituality, or is it?
For me, I always see them more like knights, I guess. So it is kind of closer to like a medieval kind of
Oh, huh.
medieval
Okay,
pageantry or just kind of that kind of.
I hadn't thought of that.
But it is funny because obviously there's definitely people who it seems like what they're wearing, it's more like a hijab or it's more kind of. That's what's so great about portraiture is people will come and they'll see so many different things in them, and I think by making sure that basically always with every clothing element in there I wanted to feel like it could stem from, as always, from like the 1900s onward. Like we don't want a fixed point of time. And there's
Yep.
definitely people that when we cast them felt maybe more contemporary, and the hood helped kind of bring them back to a more kind of mysterious point in time, I
Yep.
guess.
Yep. And that's
Um,
one of the, I think, great successes of this body of work is that tension between the classical reference and the utter contemporary feel of them, the
yeah.
modernity, it's absolutely there. So on the one hand, they're loaded with classical reference, and on the other hand, they're like astoundingly today and contemporary. And a
Mm.
lot of that has to do with your vision, the way that you see the blacks and the whites, and there's a intense, and so you deliver both the reality of what the person looks like. Almost everyone in the pictures, probably all of them, would be recognizable, but the pictures are about something else. So you're
Mm.
managing to straddle both. And that's tricky because so often photographers get caught up in just conveying the real
Mm.
and the other thing doesn't happen. And or if you get too abstract, which I tend to also like, where things are out of focus, it sometimes loses a little bit of the power that photography delivers of being of a certain moment. So I like that yours can be looked at in both ways, that they're this moment, but they're also, like you say, 100 years from now, they're going to be something else. People are going to look at them in the way you look at, again, we bring our own references. So when you saw Medieval Night, I never saw that. I saw nuns' habits. I
Mm.
had two aunts who were Catholic nuns, so it just came automatically. But obviously, and then I will say another thought I had, again, thinking about constantly that how also it's so interesting, the building, the structural, formal problem solving you're doing versus the spiritual and the looks on their faces. I want to find out how you got the looks. You know what it made me think of? The expressions on people's faces, probably inside the confessional booth when people are telling their sins to the priest. That's what it stirred up in me. I was a 7-year-old back in the confessional booth because there's looks.
No, I know. I can think of the people you're thinking of as well.
I just felt guilty. Like in some of them, I entered and became the person anyway. But I love that you can do that. They're referencing so many things. But that might be a good moment. Talk about eye contact because that's such an interesting, it's one I think about all the time. Like it's a gigantic thing because the power rests in the photographer more often than not if there's no eye contact, and
Mm.
more power in the subject if there is. But then it becomes too real. It doesn't transcend if it breaks that fourth wall. What do you think what are your thoughts in your head when you're making that decision?
It's funny because it's not something like I'd necessarily gone, oh, I've chosen majority not looking, but obviously I have.
Yep.
I do think it is in some ways related to what you're talking about in that I'm always trying to find maybe like an in-between moment, like a snatch moment of where the person having their portrait is not necessarily aware of what they're giving at that
Yes.
moment. And it's just obviously there are pictures. I've got photographs of everyone looking at me. I just think there's something. I mean, I like the moments where the one I think of, there's like a grinning kind of Francis Bacon's face that's looking at you. And I think when we do look, when hopefully when the eyes do look at you, it's like there's a reason and there's like a confrontation there. I like
Yeah.
that across the project there are these moments of kind of the edges are bleeding a bit, like there's a double exposure, or there's a more abstract version of a face, or like I like this moment that you could be walking past, not be go, oh, this is normal, or like seeing this like the simpler side, and then kind of there's a flash of something maybe slightly more surreal or horrific, or kind of
Yep. Yep.
or
Yep.
like a different tone. But yeah, I think the not looking is definitely just because it's otherwise it's I don't know. I'm still trying to present people in like a noble, beautiful way, but I think there's this moment where there's less of me there as well. You're less aware of the photographer, I feel potentially.
Yes. Yes. But
There's
how do you do that in such quick sittings? Like, just how do you do that? Because that's the hardest thing, is to get people to forget you're there and go to that reverie, that internal meditative space.
I
This is a
think
practical question, just
no,
how
no.
you
I
get.
mean, it's interesting because obviously, I think the thing is we had like a routine that we would repeat with each person where they'd come into the space, they'd go into well, not really hair and makeup, but they'd get their hair pushed back off their face, I'd then come and say hello to them, and I'd say, look, we're going to go from here to here to here. We're going to go into three different spaces. In the second space, you're going to put on a hood that will isolate your face, and we're just going to go walk through this space together, and it's probably going to take 10 minutes. And then so with each person, I would kind of bring them in space, and sometimes we're talking, and they're giving their energy is quite like intense, and it's kind of trying to like bring them down and slow them into a slightly more relaxed state. But loads of people, I think,
Hmm.
because my shoot spaces aren't, they're very kind of relaxed places. There's not an
Yeah.
energy of kind of anxiety, I'd hope. And
Yeah.
even if they're having their pictures taken as something that people don't enjoy, everyone obviously agreed to come and do it. So there was you already know they're intrigued in the process.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
no, it is often a point of me talking to them and then kind of just kind of guiding their eyes around the room away from me. And so it could be like, can you pick out someone else in the room and look to them? Can you kind of count out loud to me? And can you say a
Hmm.
different number to different people in the room? Like it's often just
Ah,
like little ways to distract people
yes. I
and
like the
kind of
count out loud. Huh.
yeah, counting out loud is a quite a good one for loads of people, just because that's when you get some kind of there's a girl with a really beautiful mole and her lips are kind of moving and that's from counting out loud.
Wow.
Um,
I like that. Also, when people are anxious, sometimes the advice that's given, there are different counting exercises they're given. So you kind of do both things. It's interesting. I never, by having them count, it relaxes them as well as helps them
and
enter
like
into that other type
stretching,
of
we do
thought.
stretching as well, just like
Yeah.
little like
Yeah.
head movements, like little like it's all quite like gentle little kind of ways to try and keep people in motion and then finding
Yeah.
those the spots when you kind of the points I'm clearly like looking for, I guess.
Yeah, no, it's so interesting because it's in such a quick time. You got them again and again in a moment of significance where there's somehow the picture suggests something deeper going on, and that's a tough thing to do.
Mm.
I mean, you get there, and they're regular people, so you both elevate them to a kind of stature.
Yeah.
Sometimes can be easier to do with a Shakespearean actress like Glenda Jackson.
Yeah.
And at the same time, again, you have that great tension between their hard pictures. You get the fact that they're just regular folks. I just saw so much spirituality in them, as well as what I
Mm.
like. It's almost like you've chiseled the face sometimes out of marble, which is again thinking head, shoulders, Michelangelo, the stuff artists have dealt with since the beginning of time. And then I couldn't help but think this morning, looking at him again, The Rock. You wanted to photograph him. You clearly wanted to chisel something out of him. So, and then the etching, the black blacks, the white whites give you that cold harshness, and yet the expressions give you this ecclesiastical, spiritual, soulful, whatever the word is, interior feeling that
Yeah.
you know. I even wondered if your desire to line them up in that line, that ribbon in the gallery, made me think of the Stations of the Cross, like each becomes an icon. No, they do. They
No, I know
become
what you mean. I do. There's this like process
an
of
icon or something.
and I think it's like about a bit about queuing as well. This idea of like just kind of
Queuing. Oh,
queuing and
huh.
bureaucracy and like it's funny that like the different things in that when I was putting them all up when we thought about that way of displaying them because of the way they're printed. It's like
Yeah.
it's a small piece of paper with and the image is actually quite small, which
Yep.
I think well, I'm hoping because I really want to draw people in. I think if they're too big, people can stand at a distance. And I want people to
Yes.
be like have to come
Lean
close
in.
and lean in and like really kind of pick apart what they're seeing.
That's one of the big decisions too. Do you have people come close and lean in, or go for the drama? Because
Yeah.
some of these, I'm looking at the pictures, and a big print would be gorgeous, but I tend to be on the side that you're on. I'd much rather, particularly with photography, people be able to lean in
Mm.
because you pay more attention somehow. But you have to resist the desire to get the high impact drama of the big print. So to your credit, you have the guts to do that. Whereas often, I think lately, well, this has gone on for a number of years in art world, things are printed too big. I mean,
Yeah.
they are. They're too big. They don't merit the size often, and then that's its own
Mm.
frustration.
I,
But
I I think it also speaks to like the imagery, the classical imagery of portraiture, which I love, which is mugshots, which are usually
Mugshots,
when
yep.
they were printed are this big,
Yeah,
and kind of those like silhouette style Victorian like
yep,
illustrations of the cutouts. Like they were all small things. And then from
yep.
a practical perspective, I think it's quite hard to live with a massive portrait in your house.
Yeah, yeah, that's a good point.
Like I think it's
It's
easier to like
collectible.
bring in like a smaller thing. And also I love the feeling of like that they might feel like vernacular objects. So they, again, they might feel like things that have been found and
Yep,
discovered
yep,
rather than things that have been made.
yep. I totally see that also. When you're making the pictures, who are the guardian angels that you're thinking of? Who's on your shoulder? Painter, poet. You mentioned August Sander as a photographer. Who do you think about? Or you have the most fabulous mood boards, or you just prepare the
Um,
mind?
you have all your classic touchstones of Penn, Avondon, like
Yep, yep,
Vivian Meyer, like the kind of
yep.
street kind of photography classics, mugshot books, and then Helma Lursky.
Oh, yes, beautiful. Wow. Again, speaking of the kind of marble sculptural.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
I've never been able to get to what he's the skin texture,
Wow.
this kind of I mean it's there's a gentler version here, but like
Yep.
yeah, it's like the I mean it's slightly different because he's a lot more cropped on there, but there's just something he's always in my head, essentially. He was
Wow.
very much in my head for The Rock as well.
Wow.
Like
That's a wonderful reference. Look, and
that's kind of always that's the Bible for me.
that's the simplification. That's again going trying to get to the essence. It's so little delivers so much more. Often it's removal. You know, it's funny when you mentioned Avedon because I had a quote of his here. You know his quote, I've worked out a series of no's.
Yeah, I don't maybe I
He
don't.
said, I've worked out a series of no's. I've worked out a series of no. No's to exquisite light, no to apparent compositions, no to the seduction of poses or narrative. And all those no's forced me to the yes. I have a white background. I have the person I'm interested in and the thing that happens between us.
Mm,
Isn't that a great quote? A series of no's. Like it's not
yeah.
helpful to a young art student, but in the end, you get to that. You have to do a bunch of work to get to that point. I love that one. I
But
think it's
also, I think like you can also go the other way as well. I think one of the things Brett always
yes,
taught me, the guy taught me, was he was either like you've got to be perfectly like on the line of simplicity or so far over in the horizon that it's mad.
that it's mad. Exactly. Well, I love that. That's a great quote. That's a great quote. No, that's exactly right. You either go all the way for excess or keep working toward. And when I first read that quote years ago, I was like, no, that's not right. That's wrong. I felt it was wrong.
Yeah.
I had to come around to it, but you don't get there right away.
Mm.
But yes, some people's work, the complexities about is part of it. It's hard to get there. That's again the,
Mm.
and that's also the hard question. Do you go for adding the express? Like when I was thinking about your work, some reason what came to my mind was Lucian Freud, just because the expressions on the
Yeah.
faces, what he's doing with oil, was doing with oil paint, you're doing with your ability to get people into that zone of something else. And then your gorgeous lighting delivers it. But also, do you know Frank Auerbach, his work? You probably know the other, another,
Yeah.
I think German, but British life and British art. But he's another one that it's all
No.
mark. His is mark making,
Mm.
but I feel like again, it's reworking the face over and over and over in the same way that again, Giacometti worked the figure. You're again and again trying to find something in the face, and sometimes the face, neck,
Yeah.
shoulders. That would be a cool show someday. Freud, Auerbach, and Davison. It would be, so plant that seed. It would no, it would be interesting, right? Because it
Yeah,
would.
I mean, some people. I mean, because the only person who's seen these is like someone took like Francis Bacon also came up as like
Yes.
because I do think obviously like I love abstracting the face and I've done that kind of forever now, and so
Yes.
it is. I do think there's a point in your life where you are like I still feel like there's pictures I haven't taken. I'm not to that stone, but obviously you go like, well, I am treading on territory I know well, but that's also kind of fun and exciting and kind of interesting to do.
Say more about treading on territory you know well.
I must have taken over hundreds of thousands of pictures and thousands of portraits of different people. since I was about 14. So that's kind of over like a
Yep.
decade of doing it. But and obviously I think there's portraits I took when I first came to America that could sit with this series. There's always been these kind of photos where you get to a point where you're kind of got a kind of where you're the elements are simple. It's a person and you, and as kind of Avon was talking about that kind of simplicity of a background. Like I've never
Yeah.
been one for pure white, but just kind of yeah, having no context. And then I obviously am like more aware now of my ability to kind of shape it and kind of figure and kind of make sure it's a refinement of what I've maybe done before.
Yeah.
Or just kind of I guess seeing that last time when I was at Paris Photo last year and seeing that August Sander work, it's amazing work, but it didn't. I thought the way it was put up didn't kind of did it a disservice in some ways.
Why?
It was too tall. You couldn't see the ones at the top. It was like this. It was just like there was no space. There was no breathing space. And obviously, that for some people might be like, oh, it just shows the kind of the body work. But for me, I was like, no, I wanted quieter moments with some of the pictures, and you had to really go in and try and like not look at everything else around it. But it did
Yep.
maybe there's a couple of his photos that I've always loved that I went, oh, like that would be really nice to do. Like, and I just kind of I think because last time I was there, it was like, oh, let's show what we kind of again a bit of an introduction to Paris, I guess, and showing kind of the things I'm excited about. And then this year it was definitely like, well, what can we do with a bit more intention and show something new that people haven't seen?
Yeah.
And also, I just love the idea that I can do this project kind of for the rest of my life, and I'll just change the
Yeah.
location.
Yes. I love that. What do you hope to see in that? If you had to guess now, by changing the location, different cities, different countries.
Um, just the like joy and textures of humanity, like and the
Mhm.
differences. I mean, part of me would love the next one to be completely different in approach and be kind of really focused on color, but it kind of depends on
Oh.
the city. I think
Hmm.
certain cities bring color and certain cities feel more black and white.
Hmm.
But I just like because for the next, I've been asked to do a Paris edition, and I've said not, I'm not going to do
Right.
it yet because I don't think I'm ready to do that. I'd
Okay.
rather do like another place in England. Like I'd rather go. I'm basically going to start by kind of going around places that have meaning to me. So I
Huh.
might do where my dad's from and do the northeast in Newcastle, and then I might do where I've moved to now in Essex and try and start like making work there. Perth.
That's all England. That's
That's
you're
all
still
England. But then obviously,
close to
like
home.
I love New York. Obviously, it'd be amazing to do it in New York. It'd be amazing to do it
Yes.
in any kind of city in the world, really. And
New
just
York, black and white or color.
it's a mix that one for some. It's a
It
mix.
also gets you all the nationalities in the world, more than any other
Well,
place,
no, you
probably.
just have that amazing mix of people. I mean, the thing
Yeah.
is, it's like I would say to the location is kind of it's not. I'm not saying oh this is my vision of London. I don't think it's like I'm not trying to be like to do some kind of authorized like this is everyone because obviously I haven't represented that. I've represented probably a largely youthful a lot because I worked with a young casting director called Coco Wu on this, and there was a lot of people that she knew through college. There was about 25 people that I've worked with a lot through my life who I brought into the project because I wanted to have some people that you might recognize. Like Ian the Ant is in there. Like there's all these people that kind of reoccur through my work that I like
Yep.
continue. Like I'd like to have because I've done portraits of them every year, so it's nice to kind of continue that relationship and have this like. But yeah, no, it'd be really exciting to like do it again and just because I do
Yeah.
think different cities will bring completely different things.
No, absolutely.
All this was shot on a tiny digital camera.
No.
Yeah, it was all shot on my little Sony Zoom.
Oh my God. I love that. That's crazy.
I brought all
Wow.
my big cameras to set, and then just it's the same relationship. And the reason I always like starting with that small camera with actors or celebrities because
Yeah.
it disarms people because they don't.
Yes.
But it's the
Yes.
same thing in the way that Avanon stepped to the left of his or away from his camera. It's like the camera's at my chest. It's here.
Yeah.
It's like
Yep.
they can still see most of
Disarms.
my face. They can talk, and I can pause, and I can
Yep.
look, and
Yep.
it's kind of I feel like they're more. I think a lot of the time, if with the bigger cameras, you become like a robot head, and
Yes.
you're kind of
You
your face is
become
hidden, and you're just kind of an
100%.
automaton. But I think there's something nice about working with small cameras in that way.
you're preaching to the choir because
Yeah,
you
I know.
know all those years I did the portraits with the iPhone, it does give you an advantage. People don't get as some people do, but you're more likely to get people more relaxed into themselves. They don't take it as seriously. And as soon as
Yeah.
it's a big camera, a different kind of expression comes on. I guess I have another question because it comes up with photography and it has two different meanings.
Okay.
One in journalism, obviously, and another in art. What's the truth in your pictures? What truth are you seeking?
Thing is, I'm not sure if photography is truthful fully, obviously, because I think
Mm-hmm.
I mean I don't think I am with these portraits necessarily seeking a full truth because obviously I'm essentially deciding what people are wearing. I'm putting their hair in a certain way. I'm bringing them into a certain space. So
Mm-hmm.
already there's a lot of kind of barriers to it being like it's not like I've like the idea is obviously ideally you could stop if you were just stopping people on the street, you were able to do it and it was very like but I like the fact that there's this added layer of authorship within
Mm-hmm.
what people are wearing and like because it's led you to I mean we did talk about the ecclesiastical collars and the wearing of jackets backwards and this kind of language that's kind of a subtext that people can read
Yeah.
into or not read into um for truth I guess it's maybe it's an emotional truth or there's something a feeling that I share with someone or
Yeah.
something I'm clinging on to where I feel like they are at that moment emotionally open or giving us a story, whether that's
Yeah.
kind of intentional or unintentional with them or me is kind of that's where maybe it becomes more truthful because I can't control exactly what that person is going to do, but the moment I click the shutter, I
Yeah.
might freeze something that feel but then again it could be dishonest because in freezing that moment it's then so easy to recontextualize it in the
Mm-hmm.
series or as a single portrait because in the
Yeah.
same way that the Glenna Jackson portrait that we always talk about, it's like she essentially was like maybe wiping her nose or she was mid sneeze or there's this moment of like that feels like a cry of anguish and it's like how like it's I guess it's just trying to find like an accidental little sliver of time where
Yeah.
I'm not in control of it but and they aren't.
I like that accidental sliver of time when you're not in control of it. That's great. Another great line. No, it makes sense. It's also interesting that you are so adept at it, both with the ultimate, again, Glenda Jackson, person who is in total control of her face, every motion is just in her DNA at this point. And yet you have that same power with the not, completely unknown people who don't even think about how their body face moves through the world. So I love that you do that when you're making these. So that like sliver of time when you're not in control and you evoke some emotion on their face. What kind of emotion are you hoping to elicit in the viewer looking at the picture?
I'm just hoping they will find it themselves, really. I think some people will feel melancholy, some people might feel happiness, some people
Yeah.
might feel elation at beauty or simply I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm very they'll be presented, I kind of guess, without context. So it's kind of I'd rather that people brought their own stories to them. And because that just gives them so
Yeah.
much life. And if I kind of I think it's always that kind of I mean talk about it a lot recently, but like this idea of death of the author and the what I feel and what they mean to me is less important than what the 1,000 people who could look at them at Paris might feel.
Yeah.
And that the range of that is what's exciting, what makes that photograph alive, I guess.
Exactly. That's ultimately it's the reaction on the part of the viewer.
Mm-hmm.
Do
Yeah.
you ever see that beautiful short video that Renika Dykstra did about the weeping woman with the school kids? If you ever get the chance to see it, I want to see it again. It was years ago. She did a video, I'm doing this from memory, where a group of school children are looking at a picture of one of Picasso's Weeping Woman. And she is filming the children's faces as they talk about what they see in the picture.
Oh,
And I
that's
want to
amazing.
find it again. I remember it was so moving because, of course, being a painting, surreal, abstract, whatever, Picasso-esque, many different interpretations, but it was in a way, it would also be fabulous to record people like, again, maybe school kids, not
Well,
kids who are
it's
editing
funny.
themselves,
It's funny.
reacting.
I nearly did film it, the whole thing.
Wow.
I stopped at the last minute because I went. I've been making a lot of filmy things, and I just went. You know what? I this is about photography.
No, but I mean, film the viewer reacting to them.
Oh,
Like,
I
in other
see.
words, no. So her
Okay,
picture is
fine.
just the school kids' faces as they're talking about the weeping woman painting. And it gets very emotional. So some of your more emotional ones here, where sometimes somebody looks off to the side and they look almost particularly with the guys, like a little bit startled or a little bit worried or anxious. It would
Mm.
just be interesting to see what others see in it. Or when it's the opposite of it, kind of, I don't know, how would you explain it? More serious, again, contemplative.
Mm.
I don't know, it could be interesting to see what others see. It's part of the reason why you do it. There's a million ways to do it. I've got another great quote for you. This one from Picasso. If there were only one truth, you couldn't paint 100 canvases on the same theme. And
Mm.
that's what you're doing here. It's like there's not one truth. You've got
Yeah.
a face, and then you could do 100 different,
I, I,
you do
it,
it over and over trying to get at something.
yeah, I mean that's the thing. I kind of like I know of. I mean, there might be a time where I'm less enthused with making pictures, but it's like that kind of first date or that first meeting with someone. It's like because a lot of it originally when I started, I was doing it in person on the street, and it's kind of like there's a fear factor. There's so many things you're balancing, and also the person
Yeah.
doesn't have time, so you're trained to do it quickly. But there's still something so exciting with getting that person in front of you in that moment. You're like, okay, what is this going to be like? Because some people are spiky
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
combative, some people are sweet, and some people are like really into it. And some people, there's a girl who, one of my favorite, like, there's a real picture I love that she was so awkward and shy, but gave like an instantly, like, just gave the best picture in like 1 second.
Oh, yeah. Look at that. Just beautiful.
But she just kind of walked in and just was like, I was like, oh, she's literally walked out of a film that she's just like he's the femme fatale of like a of some
Yeah.
kind of like noir. But I guess it's like that's always going to be exciting to me, hopefully. So that's the thing is like I started this as a bit of a project for myself and something I wanted to do. But now I'm also aware that like, yeah, I can do this every year, or I can do that
Yeah.
like when I have the energy, have the time. If I'm in a place, I can go, okay, well I'm gonna be in Tulum. Maybe I'll do one in Mexico or like or wherever you are, or doing something locally. It's just like and
Why
just so by
not?
the end of hopefully by the end of when I'm in my like 70s, there'll be this massive
Exactly. I
body
love
of
that
these
you're building
pictures.
that. Love that you're building that. And you could probably even make that 80. Can I just say that as someone who's 69? You got 10 more years on that with inshallah, with any luck.
No, no, I still hope. The thing is, when I get to that age, I'll finally be interesting to photograph myself, so I can do all my like weird Lee Friedlander self portraits in that era.
Oh, you're going to wait till then. I love that to do your weird self portraits. I love that that's when you're waiting for that because so often people want to do those portraits when they're young and beautiful, right? Over and
No,
over, you see that,
no.
but you're waiting till you have
Kathy, if I
character.
had a beautiful, interesting face, maybe, but I know I don't in the kind of way that I would like it. So I'll wait. I'm letting it stew.